The remote control might be the most important part of your streaming experience. Well, maybe that's an overstatement, I don't know. But it is extremely important because this is the thing you interact with every single day, the thing that you have in your hand. And to be honest, after 7 or 8 years of the cord-cutting revolution going on in earnest, I kind of feel like we're getting pretty close to the platonic ideal of the remote control. So today I thought it would be fun to look at 5 of the most common streaming remotes out there. We've got the Roku, the Apple TV, the Chromecast, the Fire TV, and the NVIDIA Shield. My gosh, that's a lot of remotes. And we're going to take a look at what they have in common, what they do differently, and what would be the perfect remote if we could take the best from each world. So, let's dive in. Thanks for joining me today, everybody. Don't forget to hit the like button, the subscribe button, all the buttons if you enjoy this video. Okay, let's get into it. Now, before we get to what the ultimate remote control would look like, let's take a look at what these streaming remotes all do very well. I will say, first of all, they're not the cable and satellite remotes of yore. Thank goodness, those things were a mess. These streaming remotes are simpler, they're much more streamlined, they're easier to manage, they're not so confusing. A lot of what you could do with the old cable and satellite remotes, now they just put on home screens or in settings menus, and I think that's great. Now, what do these remotes all have in common? Well, let's take a look. They all have a power button, they've all got volume and mute buttons, except the NVIDIA Shield remote, that one does not have a mute button. They all have a direction pad and a select button. They all have a home button, a back button, and a voice search. So those are the common elements between these. And that's a pretty good starting point. They do start to differ though when we look at other features that they have. Most of them come with a play-pause button, except for the Chromecast remote. The Chromecast remote simply builds that right into the directional pad and the center select button. And frankly, I really like that. I think we might want to integrate that into our ultimate remote. Most of them come with a rewind or fast forward button, except for the Apple TV, that one does not. It has a play pause button, but it depends on the left-right select buttons, or the left and right directional buttons to do that fast forward and rewind. Most of these remotes have a dedicated button for settings or menus, but there are some exceptions to that. The Chromecast remote doesn't. Now you can get around that by long holding on the home button, but that's not exactly obvious. And then there are the dreaded app buttons. Okay, Roku's been getting grief for this for years, right? Those little buttons at the bottom that they sell to streaming services like Netflix or Disney Plus or whatever, so that you have those shortcut buttons on the bottom. They serve as advertisements for those streaming services. The idea being, hey, if I've got a dedicated Disney Plus and Hulu and Netflix button, I'm gonna go ahead and get those services so that I can get to them easily just from my remote. Great. Originally, the Fire TV remote didn't have them, and then they caved and did the same thing on their newest iteration, so they've got 4 of those buttons on the bottom as well. The only remote that doesn't have any at all is the Apple TV remote. Or does it? The Apple TV might be the worst offender of all of these brands as far as pushing you to buy from their ecosystem, right? So when you want to rent or buy a movie or a show, yeah, you can find other ways to do it, but they're gonna push you really hard to do it on iTunes. So when you push on the home or the menu button here on the Apple TV remote, it takes you to Apple TV, where, yeah, you're gonna be encouraged to buy lots of stuff. So yeah, it still funnels you in. It's not a dedicated button the way that those others have, but yeah, it kind of skirts that line a little bit. The other thing that we should probably consider is how these remotes look and feel in the hand. For the most part, they're long, thin, and flat on the front, rounded in the back. The weird one in this case is the NVIDIA Shield remote, which is kind of triangular, which you get used to it, but it is very odd. It's nice that I can stand it up on my table, but it's weird that when I lay it down, it doesn't lay down flat. The other odd thing about the NVIDIA Shield remote is that because of its design, because it's so long and so thin, the buttons on there, those little circular buttons, they don't really differentiate well from each other. So it's a little bit tougher to find your way around without looking down at the remote with the NVIDIA Shield. Again, you can learn the remote, you can take the time to figure it out. It's just, yeah, it's going to take time. The others tend to be a little bit more intuitive. For example, the Roku remote is really great at giving their buttons different sizes so that as you're feeling around with your finger, it's easy to tell which button your finger happens to be resting on. Okay, all that being said, if we were to craft our ultimate remote control, how would we do it? Well, first of all, I want to hear what you think, so go ahead and hit the comments. Let me know what elements you would incorporate into your ultimate remote control. If we're looking at my ultimate remote control, it would be kind of a cross between the Roku, the Chromecast, and the Apple TV remotes, all of which I think are very good. So let's take a look at my incredible design skills as I drew out what my ultimate remote control would be. Shut up, I don't want to hear it. I did my best. Obviously, I would want TV controls. I want a power button, I want volume and mute buttons, and I like that those are on the side. Roku does that really well, so you put those on the side. With the voice search button, I would want to separate that from the rest so you can put it up at the top of the remote where your thumb is least likely to stray. As far as the direction pad and select button, I think the Chromecast does it best as far as having that circle with the button in the middle. It's really no nonsense and it looks great. And I would not include a play pause or a rewind fast forward button. Again, the Chromecast is our guide here. We really just need that directional pad and the center button. When you're playing content, that acts as your play, pause, and your rewind fast forward. Pretty simple. A back button is absolutely vital, as is a home button to take you to your main menu. Now take note, Apple TV, this should not take you to Apple TV and then you have to click it again to go to your actual menu. It should go straight to your home page. Now we want a menu button as well. That menu button or settings button would open up that settings menu, make it really easy for you to manipulate that. And then we get to the brand buttons. Down at the bottom here, I have 3 brand buttons. You'll notice that one of them is round like the other buttons, and that one can be dedicated to that specific brand. So if it's a Roku remote, you get a Roku channel button, for instance. If it's Apple, you go to Apple TV Plus, whatever the case may be. You get the idea. But underneath that, we've got 2 customizable buttons. This is something you can get on the Roku Ultra remote, but that's about the only place that we see it. And yes, I know that you can kind of back-end customize your Chromecast remote to do a similar thing, but that's kind of a power user move. We're going for simple here. So with those 2 buttons, you could program them to take you to Netflix or to Hulu or to Disney Plus or to Apple TV Plus, whatever the apps are that you use most often, that's where you should be able to program them to take you. And the last thing we should consider is the shape. No, we don't want a triangular thing like the NVIDIA Shield. Not my favorite remote, you guys. If I had my druthers, I would do a cross between the Roku and the Chromecast remote. The Roku Ultra that has all the bells and whistles, it's just a little too chunky for my taste. I actually prefer the feeling of the lower end Roku remotes. So they're a little bit closer to this Chromecast. I love the curves on this Chromecast and I love the layout of the directional pad at the top. So maybe somewhere in between these 2. Anyway, there you have it. That's my take on the ultimate streaming remote. Really, the ultimate remote. It can do anything you need it to pretty darn quickly. But what would yours be? Again, hit the comments. I'm really interested to hear what you guys would think. And hey, if you share this widely enough, hey, maybe we can get some people paying attention and redesigning their remotes with this video in mind. Who knows? So thanks for watching, everybody. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoy this video. Join me on Fridays at 2 p.m. Eastern for my live streams that I do here every week on this channel. I would love to see you there. We do Q&As, we do giveaways, we have a lot of fun. It's a really good time. So I'll see you there.